Now, there's two things going on when a price changes. There is something called the substitution effect. So this is basically the tendency for people to substitute their consumption towards things that are cheaper and substitute them for things that are more expensive. So basically, in this problem, apps got cheaper, which means portable power banks got relatively more expensive. And so part of this shift is a substitution away from the relatively more expensive power banks to the relatively cheaper apps. So that's one thing that's going on, right? And that's what we call the principle of substitution, okay? This idea that people tend to shift their consumption towards things that are cheaper and away from things that are more expensive. Now, the other one is called the real income effect. And so to understand that effect of a price change, we need to understand this idea of purchasing power. So purchasing power is the value that you get for your money. It's the value of money for buying goods and services. So basically, at the end of the day, the only reason you care about the money that you have in your pocket or the money that you have in the bank is because of what it can buy you, right? So if tomorrow, something were to happen where money was worthless, it couldn't buy you anything, well, then those dollars in your pocket, would you care about them anymore? Absolutely not. What you care about is the dollar's purchasing power. So one way to think about this is if your income stayed the same, you earned the same amount of money, but the price of a good that you are buying goes up, you can't buy as much of it, right? So your income hasn't changed, but your purchasing power has changed. It's gone down because the price of this thing you're buying is going up. And so that's the idea behind purchasing power. And so that's exactly what the aspect of the real income effect is that when we have a price change, not only is there this substitution effect where people are moving towards the consumption of cheaper goods away from more expensive goods, but because of the price change, their purchasing power has also changed, their real purchasing power. And so that's what we mean by real income, right? And this is opposed to nominal income, which is the dollar amount you get on your check, right? That's your nominal income. But your real income is what you can buy with that money, with that dollar amount. Okay, so that's what we're talking about here, is that when a price changes, your real income, your purchasing power changes. Okay, so this change in people's purchasing power is a result of the price change, so that when, say, a price goes up, your real income or purchasing power goes down, and vice versa. If a price goes down, your real income or purchasing power goes up. So that's also occurring here, right? So when the price of the apps went from $5 to $4, the consumer effectively got richer. They still had $26, but they effectively, in terms of real income, real purchasing power, they effectively got richer. And that's also why they're able to buy more apps, is because they got richer. So those are the two effects, right? So they're buying more apps partly because they're substituting towards the cheaper good. That's the substitution effect. But it's also they're buying more apps partly because they're effectively richer. All right, so think about all this in a real world context with regards to behavioral economics. Think about this. Do big box discount retailers like Walmart, and what's the other one? Big Lots. Big Lots. Costco, Sam's Club, or some other ones. Do they contribute to higher obesity rates among consumers? Interesting question. So as it turns out, there have been significant declines in food prices over the last 3 decades. And the food price drops at these big box retailers have been even greater than at just normal retailers like Kroger and Publix. Many consumers have responded to those declines in food prices by increasing their food consumption, right? So like we said, when things become cheaper, people consume more of them, both because of the substitution effect as well as the real income effect. But as it turns out, well, eating more food makes you consume more calories, which can make you obese if you don't get enough exercise and physical activity. So it turns out that these declines in food prices have actually contributed to obesity in the United States. So if you think about it just for a second, that makes a lot of sense, right? Prices go down, people buy more, and if it's food, they're eating more food, and so they're going to get fat. All right, so what do you think? Which of these effects, the substitution or the real income effect, has more of an impact on your purchase? What do you think? Well, as it turns out, the substitution effect is much stronger than the real income effect, because usually price changes are relatively small, and so there's really only a very small effect on real income. Now, when this isn't the case is when the items are large ticket items like cars, houses, things that cost a lot of money, right? In those cases, the income effect can be larger.